Are you able to check the page if I did it right this time?
Yeah. Rakhsha, can you hear us?
Raksha, can you hear us?
Yes.
Okay.
Her audio is her audio is cutting out. She might want to call in. Can she call in on her phone?
Yeah.
Like she could be on the camera, but use audio on her phone.
Yeah.
So.
Can you speak now?
Is this better? Is this better?
It's very could you call in on your phone maybe for the audio?
Yeah, sure.
Yeah.
That sounded better.
Yeah, I think so. The audio is much better now. Can you speak speak
Yeah.
something?
Yeah. Is
Yeah.
this better now or no? Okay.
It is better.
Okay.
But yeah, just in case, just call if something goes wrong, just call in from your phone. Yeah, just use the audio there.
Yeah.
I would just call in as a second user, as a backup. So it, don't match your participant ID just as a second. And you can, if anything happens, just switch over.
Definitely.
5 o'clock. Should I admit people?
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay.
Welcome everyone. If you could please mute yourself as you enter, just so we can eliminate some background noise, we'd appreciate that. You want to give it a few more seconds, Brianna, to see if anyone else comes in the waiting room?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I'm keeping the waiting room open so that I can keep watching.
Okay, well, you're watching the waiting room right now. I'll just go ahead and open it up. Welcome, everyone. My name is Geneva. I'm the program director of the Interfaith Center, located at the Miami University campus in Oxford, Ohio. If you're not familiar with us, our mission is to cultivate appreciative understanding and build relationships among people of diverse religious, spiritual, and secular worldviews, as well as to unify people of all worldviews around common moral, ethical, and social concerns. And so we are really, really excited to have some students from Miami here today as our guest speakers. And our current Interfaith Center intern, Priyana, will be moderating the conversation, and she's actually organized this entire group. So I'm actually just going to turn it over to Brianna now and let her introduce herself and and she'll introduce the speakers, and then we'll just go into it. So welcome and thank you for joining us.
Okay, so can everyone hear me properly? Okay. First of all, a big thanks to the Interfaith Center for supporting me with this program today. My name is Priyana Kalita. I'm an immigrant from the state of Assam in India. I'm a student athlete and a rising senior at Miami University. And I'm currently interning with the Interfaith Center for the summer. Now for the program, I will initially keep all the viewers mute. The viewers will be able to ask, communicate, and comment by 3 ways. The first way is type the letter X in the chat box of the Zoom call, and I will call out your name so that you can communicate verbally. Second, you can type out your question or comment in the chat, and I will read it out to the speakers. Third, you can message me privately on the chat with your question or comment, and I can read it out to the speakers for them to answer. Now, a brief introduction about our speakers for today. Frida Rodriguez will be speaking first, and then Rakhsha Khatri will follow up. Frida Rodriguez is a junior in the College of Arts and Sciences of Miami University. She is majoring in social justice and Spanish. She hopes to attend law school after graduation and go on to become a criminal defense attorney in order to help those who have been wrongfully convicted. Rakhsha Khatri is a 4th-year student at Miami University. Her family and herself immigrated to the United States, more specifically Cleveland, in 2012 from Pakistan. She is currently studying microbiology and public health with the intentions to pursue medicine. In whatever she does, she strives to help make healthcare accessible to every individual, regardless of their immigration status. Now, without further delay, I would like to ask Frida to start speaking.
Hi guys. Thank you so much for letting us be able to be here today and to talk to you about these topics that hit close or don't hit close for some of you. So I'm really excited, and I hope that my presentation can educate you in some way in the most respectful way. So I'm going to talk about immigration, which is kind of what we were talking about anyway. But okay, so for those of you who don't know the direct definition of an immigrant, it's a person who comes to live permanently in a foreign country. Now, there are 4 different types of immigrants. 1 is US citizens, 2 are permanent or conditional residents, 3 non-immigrants, and 4 undocumented. So I'm going to go into detail about what each one of them is in case you didn't know. So US citizens, those are people who were born in the US or have become naturalized after 3 or 5 years of permanent residency. These citizens can never be deported unless a citizenship was obtained through fraud. And so you can work legally and you can receive any public benefits that you qualify for, which is what we all are. So permanent or conditional residents. So legal permanent residents are those who have a green card. A green card holder or a lawful permanent resident is someone who has been granted authorization to live and work in the United States on a permanent basis, while conditional residents are those who have been married for less than 2 years before they can receive their green card. This type of residency also requires that you and your spouse jointly file to remove the condition within 2 years of you receiving a green card, or the card will be terminated and you can face deportation. So non-immigrants, they fall into several different types of categories, are in the country legally, but not on a temporary basis. So like students are international students, for example, at Miami, they're here on an F1 visa. Business visitors or tourists are on a B1, B2 visas. Fiancés are K1 visas, and then individuals granted temporary protection status. In general, these type of visas don't intend to immigrate. If the application is fraudulent or you overstay or otherwise violate terms of your visa or your legal status, you will be changed to undocumented. And then we have undocumented immigrants, which are people who are in a country without permission or illegally, or caught undocumented. This means they don't have permission to live in the United States. They're not authorized to work, and they have no access to public benefits like healthcare or a driver's license. And any person who is undocumented runs the risk, obviously, of being deported or having deportation proceedings against them at any time. I'm gonna try to share my screen. I can do that, right? Even though I'm not a host. Okay, so you would think after having a semester on Zoom, I would know what I'm doing, but I don't. So hold on, share screen. Okay, well, it says that I can't share my screen, Brianna, so I don't know if that's, it says host disabled attendee screen sharing.
Now?
Okay, let me try. Okay, perfect. I don't know, is it shared? Okay. Perfect. So can you see my screen? Is that working? Awesome. Okay. So one of the things that I wanted to highlight on is immigrants' kind of economic impact when it comes to the United States specifically. So here this graph is telling us about immigrants with a 4-year college degree as a result since March 2018. So immigrants are 36% of farming, fishing, and forest occupations. They're 36% of building and grounds cleaning and maintenance occupations. Textile, apparel, and manufacturing industry, they're 29%. Food manufacturing is 27%, accommodation industry 27, construction industry 24, administrative and supportive services industry are 24%. So one of the reasons that I wanted to highlight on this because personally, like myself, I come from a family of immigrants. My parents, my mom and dad, they came here illegally at the age of 14 and 16. And going through the list of things, like I could honestly name all of the things that my dad or my mom have done or family members themselves. And so, for example, construction, my dad worked in construction. My dad was in the food manufacturing. He was a picker. My aunt actually right now works in textile industry. My grandma cleaned houses because it was easy jobs that were paid under the table. So that's one of the things I wanted to highlight. The percentages are very high. If we look at it, 36, 29, 27, 24, for that much being illegal or undocumented immigrants who are taking those occupations, that's a very high number that they're still being used for those types of work and they're still benefiting our economy in another way. And so in 2014, there were 11 million undocumented individuals in the United States. This number has remained unchanged from 2009 and represents a decline from 2.2 million undocumented individuals who reside in the United States in 2007. So 1.2 million is a very big, that's a really big difference. And then we also see that in 2014, there's also one thing that we highlight with it comes to immigration is the criminalization of immigrants, which has recently emerged, I think, evident in our economy, in our political economy right now, but this has been something that has happened throughout history for a very long time. So a census done in 2010 revealed that incarceration rate among young, less educated Mexican, Salvadorian, and Guatemalan men who make up the bulk of unauthorized populations are significantly lower than the incarceration rate among native-born young men without a high school diploma. And then in 2010, less educated native-born men between the ages of 18 and 39 had an incarceration rate of 10.7%, more than triple the 2.8% among foreign-born Mexico men, and 5 times greater than the 1.7% rate among foreign-born Salvadoran and Guatemalan men. So that's just that's just a few things like relating to the criminalization of immigration. And then one thing I wanted to focus was how immigration relates, since this is the Interfaith Center, it's related to a bunch of different religions and faiths. Christianity, for one example, is something that I believe in and that I've been raised in, and one thing that is really evident in the Bible is actually immigration. And it's a concept that is discussed heavily in the Old Testament. It discusses foreigners and immigrants. And so in Deuteronomy 27:19, it says, "Cursed is anyone who denies justice to foreigners, orphans, and widows, and all the people who reply, Amen." We see again in Deuteronomy 10:19, "You shall also love the stranger, for you were strangers in the land of Egypt," which is relating to when the Israelites left Egypt. If you don't know that story, it's in relation to Moses and Joshua. It's really great, read it, and it's in Exodus. So in Matthew 2, which is related to the New Testament, which is a lot of what we relate our present life to right now, Joseph takes Mary and baby Jesus to escape from Herod, this is after Jesus is born, and he wants to kill every kid under the age of 2. And then he takes them to a new place where they're not from, in Israel, Nazareth. And so Matthew 2:13-15, it says, "Now they had departed, behold, an angel of the Lord appeared to Joseph in a dream, and he said, 'Rise, take the child and his mother and flee to Egypt, and remain there until I tell you, for Herod is about to search for the child to destroy him.' And he rose up and took his child and his mother by night and departed to Egypt, and remained there until the death of Herod. This was to fulfill what the Lord had spoken by the prophet, 'Out of Egypt I call my son.'" So if you put 2 and 2 together, we see that Jesus himself was an immigrant. even if it was temporarily, he was an immigrant. And so my last thing before I end is I want to talk about one immigrant that relates very close to me. So when I was about 16 years old, my aunt, coming from a family who was immigrants, she was an undocumented, a mother of two, great woman, did what she had to do to survive, I think is the best way to put it, especially when you have a family that you need to raise, you're working jobs and you're taking care of your house and your kids. I was 16 years old and I remember I was on my way to get my driver's test, and at this age I was very naive to think that immigration wasn't something that my family had still dealt with when it was. But at the same time, you know, the way that my parents raised me was like, you're just like everybody else. Regardless of your family issues and things that we're dealing with, you're just like everybody else, and it's nothing out of the ordinary. And so I remember my mom had kind of slightly told me like, hey, like your aunt's going through this process right now with the United States government, the Mexican government. So if you could just like keep her in your prayers or just be thinking about her, that would be great. And she's very close with my family. I call her, she's basically my second mom. I am very in touch with her. And I remember I was taking my driver's test and I was super excited because I had passed and I got 100% and she was really rooting for me. And we get home and my mom is just in tears. And I was really, really scared. And I was like, oh my gosh, like what happened? Like I just got my license. It's supposed to be a really fun day. Like I can finally drive around. And my mom was like, your aunt's getting deported. And at that time I was very young, not super young, but I was really young and naive. And I was like, I don't really understand what that means. And I remember it was in May and it like had finally hit me. I was like, oh my gosh, like she's getting deported and I'm not going to see her and I don't know for how long it is. So the way that this process works in the most simple way is that the United States government, her paperwork was in order and she was okay. And then you had to go to your home country to ask for the forgiveness, or in Mexico, it's called el perdón. And you have to ask for this forgiveness. And if the Mexican government forgives you, then you can come back to the United States and become a citizen or get your residency, which is the next step. And they didn't give that to her. And I was like, well, it doesn't make any sense. Like she's a mom taking care of her kids. Like she doesn't have a criminal record. She hasn't done anything illegal. Like it just doesn't really make sense to me. I said, she's just a mom here trying to make the best of her life, trying to give her kids everything that she never had growing up. And it really didn't make sense to me. And I remember my uncle is a citizen and he became very depressed. And my cousins had to move in with us and like my whole life shifted. I had two younger sisters now living with us who lived with us for 6 months. And I remember writing my aunt letters from prison. And I remember every weekend going to the mailbox and being like, man, I really hope like my aunt's going to write to me today because I miss her and I love her. And she's like one of my best friends. And I remember I was having my quinceañera, which is like this 15th birthday party that's like really big in Mexican culture. And I was like, you know what? Like, I just believed like every week she would have a court date to see if her appeal would get accepted. And I'm like, I just think that like she's going to make it to my party. And I remember the day of my party and I was like, she's going to be here. Like, she's going to walk in and like at the very end, she's just going to come in and she's going to surprise me. And it's going to be the best thing in the world. She didn't come. And then 6 months pass and my cousins are getting ready to go to school and we get a call. And my mom is like, your aunt's coming home. And it was that same day that she got her things ready. She left prison and she came home to be with her family, to be with her two daughters who had missed her for so long that they began calling my mom their mother. And they were young. They were 6 and 8 years old. They didn't understand. They didn't know. And it's to think that it's this whole process of immigration that we don't understand, and we don't understand the stories behind it, but we still have to accept the consequences of it. And it was just super heartbreaking. And for those of you guys to just listen and understand, like, speaking from a family of one, you don't come here by choice. You come here because you got to make it out. You have to make it out of this hole that you're just built into, where you don't have enough to make ends meet. You don't have enough for food. You don't have enough to get your kid those pairs of shoes that they want, to live the life that you want, to have the education that you want. You come to this country with a language you do not speak, with nothing but the clothes on your back. You're just trying to make it out of here. So this woman, she became everything for me because she stood here, right here, and said, you know what, I want to make a difference and I want to be better than what I had. I want to give my kids everything that I never got to have. And that's just one story of the hundreds of people that are in my family who have said that I want to make it out of here and I want to be different than everybody else. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Frida. That was amazing. And thank you so much for sharing your personal story with us, thinking that we'll understand. Now, I would like to ask Raksha to start speaking.
Hi, everyone. Can you hear me? Okay, perfect. First of all, I just want to say hello, everyone. I'm so happy you're here. Again, thank you for taking the time out of your Sunday to come and listen to these 20-year-olds talk about their experiences who don't even have much life experience. So thank you. So first of all, I want to say that just to give you a little background about myself, I'm an immigrant from Pakistan. I came here with my family in 2012 from Karachi. It's a city in Pakistan, and we came to Cleveland, Shaker Heights more specifically, because my dad's sister lived here. She was the one who sponsored us. I think that to say how lucky I am to have the opportunity to come here, I think is an understatement. My family applied for the visa, for immigration visa in a year before I was born, so in 1998, and they got the visa in 2009, which I remember it took countless visits to the embassy, so much money, documents that didn't even exist because my family, both of my parents' families are from the villages in Pakistan. So documents didn't even exist because no one needed them, so they never created them. And so being able to create those paperwork that never existed, the trips to the embassy, the money, the conversations, brought us here. So I think that I've had a much easier way to come to America, and I'm lucky that my parents did that for me and my sisters. And I think that along with introducing myself, my mind always finds a way to say I'm an immigrant from Pakistan. Throughout my time in the United States, I did that I got so lucky with all these opportunities as a girl from a remote village of conservative Pakistan, always remain at the back of my mind. I'm lucky to say that we got our visa in 2009, our green cards, which the step that Frida talked about in 2011, and then my family finally got their citizenship in 2019. So to give a little background, so Pakistan is a very patriarchal society. Girls have to cover themselves up from head to toe, or else she'll get stares to the point that she's so uncomfortable. While the majority don't get to finish 10th grade, those who do end up going to college have to get arranged marriage afterwards. Then it is up to the in-laws to decide whether she gets to be a homemaker or finish her career or pursue her career. So in the hopes of that, my mom and my dad, they were like, okay, we are going to come to America. I had everything there, from a financially stable household to every luxury I could think of there. My dad was a CEO of a company that he had worked for 20 years to make. We had our loved ones right there. But what we didn't have was the stability. I have two younger sisters, 14, one's 14 and one's 9, which means my parents have no sons. Even now, when I go to visit my relatives in the villages, people to this day pity us. They say, oh, I'm so sorry that your mom never conceived a boy, because who else will continue the lineage? We had everything, like I said, in Pakistan. Um, However, the one thing we didn't have was peace. The extreme patriarchal values, the political and religious violence as Islamic nation that are embedded in Pakistani society left my parents in utter fear and frustration, and a question whether their daughters will return home from school every day safely. I vividly recall I was going into my gender segregated 7th grade classroom, and while putting my backpack on my desk, I heard a loud blast. I heard all the girls on my floor whispering, "There's a bomb blast right next to the street of our school." 10 years prior, my uncle was murdered on that same street, and I grew up hearing gun sounds on that same street. Throughout my life, my parents stressed to me that over and over again that the importance of education, and that it can be that one tool that will help us make a difference in the world. It'll be that one tool that will take me out of that unstable life and be in a company or do work where I don't have to think that I'm a girl working right next to a boy. Education was this whole reason that they chose to uproot their whole lives in Pakistan and and decide to transition to life in Pakistan with only daughters. I think I can guarantee you that no one else would have left their completely perfect life to come to this country where they didn't speak the language. My parents didn't speak the language. They didn't know anything about the culture. And leaving their parents, their sisters, their brothers, their entire family members they grew up with behind. My mom's side of the family gave their sons every chance to succeed, but unconsciously they made their daughter's life so hard, because they would send their girls to school, but then they would come home and have to do household chores. I mean, who like when we like they would come, and when else they would have the time to do homework? My mom, she had two older sisters. One finished 5th grade, one finished the 6th grade. But my mom, she finished 10th grade, and starting 6th grade, she went to a school where there were only 2 other girls in the house in the school. And she always says this, that when I was a student, I was one of those 3 girls sitting in the classroom of 100 boys. I was more worried about whether I was covered up so that the boys wouldn't stare at me than studying. I didn't want our girls to go through the same frustration. My mom didn't speak any English when she came here. But she was the same person who sat right next to me, trying to do my homework, encouraging me that you can do it. No matter what happens, you will do it, even though she never got the opportunity. She wanted to be a doctor when she was younger, and I remember every time I tell her that her eyes just light up. She's like, "This is my dream, and my daughter will fulfill that dream for me." Going back to her earlier, I said that idea that somehow I got so lucky as a girl from conservative Pakistan has always been the back of my mind when I came to US. I constantly remind myself that despite the bumps, it is a privilege that my family even had the option to immigrate, because so many of my cousins back home don't even have the means to attend school, let alone cross a border. If I want to get a driver's license tomorrow, it's a simple matter of bringing along my birth certificate, passport, social security card, green card, and just taking the test. There's no need to worry about whether I have the proper documents to even get a driver's license. But it has taken me a long time to admit that as a first generation immigrant from Pakistan, there's a constant duality in my hyphenated world. And I have the freedom to pick both of my Pakistani and American cultures and identities and unities, but with that also comes the isolating reminder that I don't totally belong in either. When I'm home, I'm with folks who have spent most of their lives in Pakistan. When I'm outside, I'm with folks who have spent most of their lives in the US, who don't even speak that same language, who have never watched that TV show that I did. So I wanted to show you this picture that I made a few years ago. Um, um, I'm not sure if it'll let me do it. I don't know. It's not letting me share for some reason. But anyways, this is it's a picture of myself that I drew, a self-portrait, and it's a completely black and white, and you can see the skin tearing, and that one scar shows a flag of Pakistan, the other flag shows a American flag, and I think that it depicts how I feel and so many other immigrants so well, because as a first generation immigrant, you don't know where you belong. You don't know who to go and talk to, because if you go and tell your parents that, oh, I want to go to talk to a therapist, they were like, what did I do to fail you? They don't understand that it's a generation of toxicity and patriarchy and this trauma that has been instilled in us for decades. They don't see it, they see it as their problem, and we have to constantly remind themselves that it's not. And when I was a teenager, I think with religiously unshorn, long, thick hair in front of the mirror, I would stand, wishing that I had what I call a white girl ponytail. Thin, short, light hair that could be thrown on top of my head, all undemanding and bouncing. I remember being embarrassed by my mom's heavy Pakistani accent when we stood at the grocery line. I would we would bleach our dark facial hair, avoiding talking in my first language, Marwari. Sadly, I subscribe to this belief that my worthiness is tied to my proximity to whiteness. Truthfully, I've spent so much of my life trying to find ways to hide my brownness because I thought it would make me easier to accept and easier to love. I'm not proud of it that I hid part of myself, but I deeply fear and believed that my wholeness would be rejected if I didn't. I didn't know it then, but my eagerness to be less brown was a consequence of assimilation, because otherwise you wouldn't belong. And the assimilation that has toxic roots in British colonization. Pakistan is a very recent nation. It gained its independence in 1947. And as a person of color, we have been taught that how accepted or deserving we will be is correlated with how comfortable white people are with what we like and how we act. After all, identities are social constructs that help other people feel comfortable knowing what they expect from us. For so long, I've felt that the first generation experience alone reminded constantly of my privilege and opportunity, because I got so lucky as a girl from a remote village of a conservative Pakistan. How could I ever suggest I'm struggling? I have everything that I wanted: a house, a opportunity, a place to go to college. But you have to remind yourself that it's okay. It's okay to say that I'm grateful. This is new and a little tough. I think I just need a little adjusting. We have to constantly remind our immigrant parents that even though they worry, they don't see the choices that we have available to us. You have to tell them that they have done amazing. You have to show them that they're grateful. I think constantly I tell myself that I have to remind my mom and my dad that sending them those texts that I'm so grateful for you, and no matter however times it takes to tell them that it will be okay and everything will be okay. And I think that even in the midst of this pandemic, you have to tell yourself that to take care of yourself. We as humans, we're like, I want to help people, but if you don't take care of yourself, you can't help anyone else. And I have to tell myself that as a future doctor. um yeah, and I just want to say thank you for taking the time to come and listen to us and listen to me. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you so much, Raksha, for sharing your story And yeah, I mean, thinking that we're capable of hearing your story. And yeah, so now I would like to open it up for the viewers to ask any question or have any comments that they have. Again, you can just put an X on the chat box and I can call out your name if that works. Okay. We have a question from Lexi Adams.
Hi, Frida and Raksha, just thank you so much for like sharing your stories. It's really inspiring to hear you guys talk about everything, and I'm just like honored to have gotten to listen to it. And with that, I kind of wanted to ask, do you guys feel like your experiences with either your parents or being an immigrant yourself, has that impacted the decisions you've made of what kind of careers you want to pursue?
Do you want to go first? Do you want me to go first? I can go, I guess. So yes, Lexi, thank you for your question. And I think 100% yes. So I actually kind of relating to what Raksha said, how she kind of followed into medicine after her mother, because that was her dream. My mom's dream was to become a lawyer. And I think that experience with the immigration system in itself kind of pushed my interest into immigration law as one of the possibilities of a career choice, because you know, living through that experience and you're just like, well, this isn't fair. Like the laws and the regulations need to be better, and to understand, I wanted to be on that side of history and one that rewrites that idea where like people have the chance to prove who they are based on what they've lived, and not like these stereotypes that overcome who they are. So I think 100% for me, yeah, that's definitely been one of the things that have motivated me to be like, well, I want to be better and I want to be the voice for my people and people who are in the similar boat as me as well. So yeah.
Thank you, Lexi, for the question. And I definitely agree with Frida. I don't think that it has played 100% role in my decision to pursue medicine, but I think my decision solidified a lot when I came to America. I think that I'm a recipient, so I have Medicaid, and my family has it, which I don't know. Some of you, for those who don't know, it's another word for it is Obamacare. It's when you don't have enough income to to have insurance, private insurance, and um, it's I've just seen so many examples, like going to the doctor and seeing how oftentimes they treat people of color, and even immigrants. They're just like my one experience that I can vividly recall is my mom has issues with her ear, and we went to this hearing aid place called Beltone. I went in and I said, I usually am the one who speaks for my mom and for my family. And when I went in, I was like, hey, do you offer this service? And do you accept this insurance card? That's like the first thing I always say. And when I went and she said, the receptionist said, yes, we do accept it. And I said, are you sure you accept it? Because your website doesn't, says there are exceptions to this. And I asked her multiple times and she said yes. And then my mom comes in, she looks at my mom, who is a little her skin color is a little darker than me, and my mom wears traditional Pakistani clothes, and she comes in and then I give her the insurance card, and then she looks at it and she said, it would be the waste of my and doctor's time to treat patients like you. And this is just one instance. I've done internships before, and at internships, male doctors have actually told me that I shouldn't be in this field. And those are the things that like makes you like, I'm gonna do it. I'm gonna show them that I can do it. And I know that's not a good reason, but that's like a very driving, like it's a pretty big driving factor that yes, I want to do this for my people. I don't want to work at I live in Cleveland. I don't want to work in Cleveland Clinic where they deny those patients who have that insurance card, but I want to work for the people who I don't care what kind of insurance card they have, because your insurance shouldn't make any difference as whether you are treated or not. And I think that's one of the big things that have really impacted my decision.
We have another question from Adara.
Appreciated y'all speeches. Obviously it varies from person to person, but is there anything, any suggestions you can give as to like, how can I better support my friends that are immigrants or first generation Americans?
One thing that I think is that I think is can be very helpful is that, you know how when this is my experience growing up for the past 8 years here. Whenever I talk to my friends, we always talk about their childhood. We always talk about what they watched growing up, what they listened to. The default is always American culture, and it's they never take the this is I'm not trying to generalize, but I think there has been only few people in these past 8 years who have actually taken the time to ask me about my childhood, because I didn't have that same childhood. Pakistan and America are completely opposite countries, in every way, shape, and form. No one ever asked me, hey, what did you grow up watching? What kind of music do you listen to? What do you and your family do for fun at home? So like these small conversations, trying to integrate these small conversations that are not, they're just surface level conversations, just integrating those into everyday conversations, I think can really make people like us feel comfortable.
I think alongside with what Raksha, oh my gosh, said, my biggest thing is, I think one of the things that always stuns me is how people just don't understand how serious education is for us. I think that's one of the hardest conversations I've had with my friends at college or kids that I grew up with, and they're just like, well, I don't understand why you like take school so seriously. Like it's just a B, like it's just a C, and it's like, not that those grades are bad, but I think especially in immigration type of homes where you're raised with this, like you have to be the best at everything that you do, and if it's less than, it's like it's not good enough for me. Creates this like stress and pressure. I think two biggest things for me, I think for my friends, is I'm like, I just want you to ask about my mental health, because that is something that I struggle with a lot, because there's this pressure to be like, it's almost like this pressure, like, well, we moved here for you, but at the same time, it's like, we love you and we're proud of you, but you need to be able to do all of this. Like, we're giving you this, so you need to do the best that you can do with what we have. So understand like that education is like, that's all that we have. Like, I know that especially like during COVID, it was really, really hard for me because my dad was out of work for like 2.5 weeks. And I was like, okay, well, my dad pays for my college, even though I got like 95% scholarships. I was like, my dad still pays for that last portion of my college. And if I don't have enough money, like, I don't know what I'm gonna do. I'm like, I'm gonna have to work overtime, like covering other people's shifts just to make sure I had that extra cash to be like on the safe net. But alongside with like what Rashika said, like those things, I think, for my opinion and my personal experience, because also like I grew up very different than Rashika did. Like I am first generation born here, while she is first generation migrating here. So it's very two different stories. And I think it's also important just to have those conversations, even if they make you uncomfortable, because those conversations matter, because they open up your perspective to things that you more than likely will never have to go through. And that's okay. But you have to understand like why saying that or acting that way affects me in a different way than it'll affect you.
Okay, thank you for your answers and the question, Adara. We have another question from Dr. Wilson. given all the nastiness, how do you care for yourself? How do you care for yourself and how do you stay sane?
I think that's like one of the really big parts that I struggle with tremendously. Like I mentioned when I was talking, um, mental health is seen very negatively. There's a big stigma, especially in South Asian culture. I Whenever we say, "Oh, I want to go to a therapist" or "I want to try it," in our family, it's seen as a downfall. Parents often say, "Oh, how did I fail you? What I was trying to why was I not there for you and I'm sorry." They feel this guilt. And we have to remind them that no, it's not that. It's like they have to take care of themselves and I have to take care of myself differently. And I think one of the big things that I love doing is that this is probably not the best habit, but I occupy myself a lot. I I use the strategy that I am so busy that I don't even have time to think about anything. And in that point you get so burnt out that you're like you just like crash. And but then I think one of the big things is that the friends who understand me, who listen to me, even if there are very few of them, just talking to them and listening to their experiences and knowing that I'm not alone helps a lot.
So I think, especially right now, I feel like everything is just so heightened. It was very, very hard. If we're just being honest and we're being real it was very, very hard. And I think, along with what Rakhsha said, I feel like we're the same person. It's so crazy. I occupy myself with doing a lot of things because it's like, okay, well, if I'm doing all these things, it distracts me from like the reality that this is going on and like this is a problem. But if I'm working 40 hours a week and then I have to volunteer and then it's just gonna go away. And like along in Latinx culture, mental health is kind of this like, oh my God, like what's wrong with you? Like that's not real. And I think with my parents, like that's one conversation that's very hard to have because I remember one of the first times I told them that I was dealing with anxiety, my mom was like, well, you could just like that can go away. And yes, it can, but it also comes back and it's dealt in relation to stress and 4 different types of stress theories. Like it's a whole, there's books and books and books on anxiety. And it's like, okay, whatever. You can go in there and depress them dishes. Like it's one of those things where it's really hard to grasp. And so journaling is one thing. And I really love to drive. That's probably one of the best ways that like, or like reading is how I keep myself sane because if I am not focused on the real world and I'm focused on learning and doing all these other things, it just distracts me from the reality of what life is and what life is bringing right now in this season of, yeah.
Okay, next we have a question from Jerry.
Hi, this kind of comes from my personal experience a little bit because I'm first gen. I'm like as white as they come, as you can see, but I'm first gen. And I know that has definitely impacted my relationships and how I relate to other people. I don't know if y'all have had similar experiences where like your background and your, growing up with your family influences how you relate to others and the relationships you do have.
So I guess my question to ask to your question is it like relation to like personal relationships and like how you react to things like with your friends? Is that like kind of what you're asking?
Just like kind of open, like friends or family, like just whatever kind of I think sticks out to you. It's kind of open ended.
I think for me, one of the things that like, so going to Miami and being first gen college student, it was really easy for me to build relationships with like Brianna or Rakhsha, like just we get along really well just because like we just get it. Like we've lived through these experiences in similar ways and also very different ways, but it's like I see you, you see me, we see each other, like it's good. And I think it's like, especially going to Miami, which is like a predominantly white school, all the kids of color, like we just hit it off because we're just like, there ain't a lot of us here, so we might as well make the best of it, and we're just kicking it together. I think that too. And then I think in relation to like my friends in general, I think because I've gone through so many things that they privilegedly haven't had to experience, we give the best advice. I don't know how it is for you guys, but I just like, they're like, well, you just get it. You just can give me the best advice and make me feel. And it's like, you know, you've lived this life and you've lived through these things where you're just like, this is how I did it. So maybe this will help you. Like, I think that's one, two thing. And I think people just, for me personally, like they just feel like they can trust me with so much, which is great. And I love that. But it also like adds to this amount of stress where you're like, okay, well, I don't want to say this wrong thing. And like my brother, for example, he's a junior this year and he's like getting ready to go to apply to college and like planning places to go. And it's like, my mom's like, well, you have to help me with this because I don't remember how to do any of this. And I'm like, well, one day, like I'm going to leave. So I don't know how I'm going to be there for you when I'm not here anymore, you know?
Sorry. So my experiences, I think that I feel like I made a lot of mistakes, and there's nothing wrong with that. I learned from them. I think for the past like 6 or 7 years of my life, I told myself that I want to be around similar people like me, but I never was able to find them. I don't know why. I just, or maybe I didn't try hard enough. Especially like even going to college, like Miami. I felt like everyone who I interacted with was someone who didn't look like me, who didn't have the same experiences as me, and we created friendships, but they weren't strong enough. They never felt like, they were all felt very surface level, and but then I never took the time to go with people who understood me, who just got me. And I felt like this like past year, I was so lucky to have found people like Priyana and Jerry who I can just go and talk to without any without me having to explain why I'm coming to them or what am I talking about. And with my family, I have always felt like I couldn't, this is, I'm not, this doesn't, it's not anything on them, but I've always felt like I was the one trying to solve the problem. When I went to college, I went and toured colleges by myself. My parents still don't know how much the tuition is for my college and things like that. But it's because I never wanted to put that pressure on them. I'm like, they are already doing so much on them. They're already doing so much for me that they don't need this extra burden on them. And then I think that has created this problem and with this relationship with my family where it's very surface level. It's very like, it's like I don't talk about any of my problems at home. And that creates a problem because as I'm getting older, I don't have that relationship with them. So yeah.
Okay. Thank you so much for your answers and the questions. Do we have any more questions? Okay, we have a question from, I'm not sure if I'm,
From me.
oh, okay, sorry. Your name's not showing, like the entire name is not showing, but I can read it out now. So the question is, how do you think the university can better?
Might be different questions.
Oh, okay, sorry, my bad.
You had a question in the chat, did you?
Okay, yeah, we have different questions. So do you want to go first? Then I can read the question on the chat. You're muted.
Yeah, I'll take the question.
Okay.
I have a comment.
Okay. We have a question from Jacqueline. So how do you the university can better support you? Where are your safe spaces on campus, or those that make you feel home and support the development of your sense of belonging on campus? Did I get cut out? Okay, cool.
Okay, so I think I can start this one because this is one question that is like, okay. I think our university, like every university, has a lot of flaws. But I think we have this space called the diversity and inclusion space, which is on the second floor of Armstrong. That's like one space where a lot of the POC kids hang out and like do things together. But I think we have to start keeping students and professors accountable. I think that's one of the best ways to create a space where kids of color of different backgrounds feel welcome, because if you're neglecting and terrorizing one group and not saying anything about it, then that was revealed, then what is being said behind closed doors that hasn't been revealed yet that you're saying about other groups and other minorities that are attending the university. I think we have this idea of love and honor, but a lot of times, I think lately, especially, it hasn't felt like we're being loved and honored, that we're kind of just like PR. I think one of the things that makes me feel at home is like knowing there are other students, like, for example, the us three or like other kids that I've met, like that's probably what makes me feel very close at home. I think the one or two clubs that represent who we are, like that's a piece that makes us at home. But I think it's when at the end of the day, like I just want to feel like I belong there. And if I'm being honest, quite frankly, I don't feel like I belong there anymore or ever really have. But yeah, that's my personal opinion.
Everything Frida said, I completely agree with. I think that the university has spent so much time priding itself in filling the seats. Filling the seats that in this room I have this many black students or have this many brown students. I think that they spend so much time doing that that they forget that they have to integrate them. They have to, I think that oftentimes, I mean, I feel like this past year I felt a lot of pressure. Like Frida said, like a lot of our friends like come and talk to us. We have to be their Google search engine, and that's problematic because how much time am I going to spend explaining something to people when they can also use Google as a platform to understand them? Why do I have to spend that time? And I think that's a problem because that's when mental health comes into play too, because it puts so much pressure on us that we have to explain things, or that like it's just a lot. I think I don't know how else to say it, but in like all organizations, all institution departments on campus, they're like, oh, how many people am I going to get? How many numbers can we get? They never do anything, like not policy wise, not like education wise. It's all just about numbers, because if I have this many people, my campus is going to become diverse. It's not about that. Diversity is just like this phenomenon, but you have to also fulfill the idea of inclusion. I mean, I think one of the biggest things that irks me a lot is that none of my professors have ever said my name. Whenever I raise my hand, I always sit in the front, and whenever I raise my hand, it's always pointing. It's never Rakhsha, it's always pointing. But if someone else raises their hand, it's automatically a question. It's automatically their name. Wouldn't that frustrate you? Like, I know that I go to office hours a lot, but not once my professors have said my name. They're always like, I know this person's name because how it looks on a piece of paper, but it's never how do you pronounce it? I mean, it takes like 2 seconds to ask the student, oh, how do you pronounce it? It's so simple. And those are the things that make you feel welcomed in a classroom where everyone around you, like no one around you looks like you. So I think these small steps can create a big impact on students' lives, make them feel welcomed. And I agree, like the safe spaces, CSDI has been one of the, I think, the best places on campus. I go there and I know that there will be people who look like me. And then there's this reassurance in you that, yes, I'm not alone. That they won't say, oh, wow, your story is incredible. But okay, yeah, your story, I hear you, I listen, and you're enough. There's a difference between the two. And I just like, I think a lot of people of color just want to feel like normal people, and they don't want to, they don't want to be treated like poorly, and they don't want to be treated superiorly. They just want to be treated as they are.
Okay. Would you like to go, Rebecca?
Okay. Okay. Raksha, I just want to say that I was sitting here thinking, I really want to make a comment, but I know I could say Frida's name. And I was so happy to hear you say what you said, because I was embarrassed that I didn't pick your name up at first. But when you said it, I was relieved. So thank you. I just wanted to thank both of you very much for really allowing yourself to be so vulnerable today. Raksha, I was especially touched by your gratitude for your parents, and for your gratitude for the opportunity to be a woman who is not, well, I hope you don't feel shunned here, but like in Pakistan, it would be a totally different experience. And I was touched by how grateful you are, because gratitude in a person is a beautiful thing. So thank you for that. And then Frida, I was especially struck by the story about your aunt. And I was sitting here like choking, trying to keep my tears back, because that is a beautiful, beautiful story. It's frightening. And I know that people run in fear, even in Oxford. I learned that when I worked at St. Mary Church, that the Hispanic community is in fear a lot. It's not a comfortable life for the undocumented. And so thank you for telling us that story. And so thank you both girls for coming. And thank you, Priyana, for inviting them. This was a great idea. Thank you.
Thank you, everyone. I see the chats popping up. Amazing comments there. Makes me feel good. But again, do we have any other questions? If not, then I'm not sure what. Geneva, can you help me out here?
Well, I mean, we're coming up exactly an hour now, so I guess if there are no more questions, maybe some closing words from Frida and.
Yeah. Okay, so do we have any closing remarks from anyone in the viewing section, or Rakhsha or Frida? Anyone? Okay.
I just want to say, I know I've said this, but I just want to say thank you for taking the time to come to this and listen to us. I think that if anything helps me personally is knowing that there are people who will listen to me. It just like, these are the things that make me feel welcomed in this country, and people who will listen to me. And I just like, I've just so much appreciation for this. I like, if I was in Pakistan right now, I feel like if I was in a video chat, no one will listen to me. They will all be like, oh, this is 20-year-old girl talking about stuff that she doesn't have any life experience. What is she talking about? And I like, knowing like you took this 1 hour just to come listen to us just feels so incredible and gives me so much hope for the future. So thank you.
Alongside what Rakhsha said, I appreciate this so much because your willingness to learn and to understand, it means a lot to me and to people like us. I hate using that word, but it really means a lot because you're stepping out of your comfort zone and out of your own narrow perspective to understand from other people's perspectives. And that's the kind of change that we need right now, especially. So we just want to say thank you and reach out to us anytime if you have any questions or want to talk. We're always down.
Yeah. Thank you both of you for cooperating with me for this program. And again, thank you so much to the Interfaith Center for allowing me to intern this summer and also allowing me to do whatever I wanted. So yeah, and personally, for sure, immigration has been a huge part of my life. I am constantly under stress because for sure, as Rakhsha said, my parents don't know how I have ended up in the US. I personally didn't have money to take SAT classes. I studied by myself and everything. So I get it. And for Frida, the story is powerful, but it's sad and it shouldn't have happened for sure. Because we want people who actually can give to the society, regardless of their status. Status doesn't matter until unless you're giving something to the society, until unless you're making a positive change. And again, thank you everyone who has attended the program. And I think so. This will be the end, I guess. I'm for sure I'll come up with something more surrounding this. And yeah, have a great day ahead. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you to both of our speakers, and I hope that we can have you back, and we very much want to bring the voices to the front of the conversation, and I hope that Yana will organize something in the future